Welcome to the No Quit Living podcast, where we aim to inspire and motivate people to never give up on themselves or their dreams. We will chat with highly successful people from all walks of life and discuss what motivates and drives them to successfully attack life head on and never give up. Welcome to episode number 38 of the No Quit Living podcast. I'm your host, Christopher J. Worth, and today's theme of the day is persistence. Our quote of the day comes to us from Napoleon Hill. Patience, persistence, and perspiration make an unbeatable combination for success. Today marks day one of the 21-day No Quit Living challenge. We welcome you to participate in this challenge where we invite you to think big and identify your one goal that you want to accomplish over these next 21 days. Please head over to our No Quit Living Facebook page for all the details and our daily videos. You can find us at facebook.com/NoQuitLiving. We hope to see you there. I'm excited to bring you today's episode. Quickly, our guest has become a good friend of mine, and I'm proud to bring her story to the No Quit Living family. In her young years, she already has achieved a large amount of success, and I don't believe that she has even scratched the surface yet. With that said, I would like to introduce Tamara Thompson. Tamara, I'd like to welcome you to the No Quit Living podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate you having me today.
Thank you for being here. So the first question is, are you ready to make it happen today?
I'm always ready. I make it happen every day anyways.
That is a perfect answer. So as our number one objective is to always inspire and motivate our listeners, I wanted to ask if you could share either a personal story about perseverance or perhaps a challenging time that tested you, but you didn't quit and kept on going.
Man, I have so many different stories there, but I'll focus on one or two that kind of tie in together. A little bit about my background. I was an alcoholic from age, I would say 24 to 30. I sobered up at age 30 and have over 6.5 years sober now. And through that journey, there was a lot of different things that happened. But once I did get clear and sober within my journey, that's when things started to shift in my mind and realizing what other things are out there in life. And I was always a fan of video production, and I used to run around with cameras creating silly YouTube videos. I actually, dates my age a little bit, but I started a YouTube channel the year that YouTube came out, and I actually had built an audience where I had over 800,000 views on my YouTube channel, and I actually deleted it. Of all things, I deleted it because but see what this and I don't take it back, but maybe I do. But see, the sense is I run a production company that's called Serious Take Productions, and it got to the point where I wanted people to take me seriously, and I didn't want to be known as just like this YouTube sensation. I wanted to produce and direct, feature-length films and, professional music videos and things like that. And so I went back to school in my late 20s for filmmaking, and that was during the same time that I actually sobered up. And I remember going into the corporate field for production, and I ended up being like a well-known documentary filmmaker up in Seattle, Washington, where I was born and raised. And I got producer roles and video production manager roles through corporate companies where I was the one that always came in and was like the creative one and brought in all these different ideas and just helped their businesses grow. And I just always knew I wanted to do something with video. And it's kind of crazy because I didn't really think of myself. My mom was an entrepreneur, and when I was younger, and I guess I've always been an entrepreneur, and I know now that I've always been an entrepreneur based on some of the stories I have. I won't go into that right now, but it's kind of funny because I went into the corporate field and I wasn't happy, and I knew that I had to stop being unhappy with what I was doing. Because I knew I loved video, but I had to do something that I loved with it. And my creativity was something that I always had to push forward and create. And so I literally, I would be working full time and then basically going out, and from that point, I was working my own company, started Serious Take Productions at the end of 2011. So I was working part-time for that as a freelancer, and then working full-time for a corporate company to build more clients on the on my freelance side. From there, I pushed out, and I decided to move forward with Serious Take Productions, and I never looked back. And so it's always been a journey to be able to push forward, through these hard times. Like, entrepreneurship is not easy by any means. And so I really just started focusing on what was most important and tried to focus on one thing that I was really passionate about, which I realized after hiring mentors and business coaches and other things along the way, that it was really about telling the story. Like, everyone has a key story, and I won't go into all that right now, but there's so much to my story, and that's why I do what I do. So at Serious Take Productions, we create epic branding trailers and documentary films that connect through stories that inspire and impact. And so that's like my whole mission in life. And to be able to have a business where I can generate profits and do what I love is what's most important to me now at this point.
That's very interesting as far as finding what your passion was. And you mentioned something that I think a lot of people, I don't want to say miss out on, but sometimes you don't connect, is you had a corporate job and it wasn't something that you were in love with, and you were doing this on the side. And I think so many of the people that we've had on our show had a similar story, not identical, but similar in the sense of finding their passion, and I commend you for that. And you also touched on something that I want to just briefly go into, is you mentioned mentors and business coaches along the way. I think that's something that a lot of people don't fully understand what that means. Is I think a lot of people think of a coach as somebody who's sitting across from a desk or sitting across from a conference table, and they're telling you, do this, 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 and this. And I think that could not be more far from the truth. And then the mentor component it's so important to have mentors. And we've talked about mentors on our show many, many times. But I guess the question I would ask you is when it came to business coaches and mentors, was it something that you did naturally, or did you get introduced to it by somebody else?
What's crazy is not a few years ago, probably about 5 or 6 years ago. Oh no, it's probably like 5 years ago when I started watching Shark Tank, really getting interested in Shark Tank and entrepreneurship more. I started following Shark Tank and Marcus Lemonis's CNBC's The Profit. And as I was watching all of these things about like products and entrepreneurship, I started studying and researching more about entrepreneurship. And then I had this aha moment with my business partner, Danielle, and I said, why don't we go out and interview 11 top entrepreneurs from around the world, people that we want to learn from, and we want them as our mentors. So, and I'm extremely persistent. Like if you don't take action, you're not going to get anywhere. You can't just have a mentor and they give you like a sheet that says do this, this, this. If you don't do it, then nothing's going to happen from it. And so I'm extremely just very persuasive, and just I'm like the queen of the follow-up and all these things, right? So I had all these people in this film, from like John Lee Dumas to Pat Flynn to Allison Maslin, Vince Reed, Michael Parrish-Dudell, who's the author of Shark Tank books. I had Heidi Lovig, who was on the episode of 100 of Shark Tank, that was invested in by Lori Grenier. Like, I did all these things to reach out and build these relationships with people, which is key too. And when I started going through this process, like, people just kept saying, like, obviously they were saying a lot of different things, but most of them were saying, I had a mentor, this is what it was. And I was like, okay, this is really cool. Like, I didn't really think about it like that. And so when these like experts that were, making 7 figures plus were all saying this, leading me in this direction, I thought, well, you know what, I'm going to figure out who resonates with me. And so, yeah, I went into an event, and it really helped shift my mindset. That's where had my barriers, was my mindset. And once I shifted that, I was like, okay, this isn't as hard as I think, because once you bust through that glass ceiling and you see that there's other opportunities out there, and you think differently and you stay positive. I mean, yeah, not everything goes as planned. And, there's a lot of hardships. Like, I've gone through a ton of roller coasters and ups and downs, and I'm super, I've turned no's into maybe, or into interest, into maybes, into yeses. Like, that's my goal. Like, okay, so I've built relationships with Marcus Lemonis. He's now one of my mentors. I met with him in person. I spoke with him on stage at Icon. Like, these things that I manifested and dreamt of doing, I just stayed persistent to make them happen. And so it's just really just, I can't even say enough about having a mentor. Once you get to a specific point, yes, you need to invest in other types of mentors, or people that are going to teach you strategies and tactics for specific things like marketing or social media, or, networking, or joining masterminds. Masterminds are really key.
It's funny you mentioned that. I just launched another mastermind this past Sunday night, and we're doing a 4-week mastermind. And I think you mentioned something about mentors and you mentioned interviewing all these people. And one of the guests I had on early was a gentleman by the name of Bob Berg, who's become a very good friend. He's a multiple New York Times best-selling author of quite a few books. And he talked about a drive-by mentor. And at first I didn't understand, I didn't really grasp it. But what I realized is that you might have a mentor in your life that's only in your life for a very short period of time, but there for a very specific reason. And then you also might have mentors that are there for years, and you might have a mentor that is there for what seems like a lifetime. And what I would recommend and just try to get across to the listeners is what you need to be, and what we recommend is being open for mentors. And not everybody will be a mentor for you, and you're also not a perfect fit to be a mentor for everybody. But I will say, of some of the most successful people that we've had on our show, they've referenced the word mentor quite a bit. And the reason being, very similar to your point earlier, is at some point somebody that they either looked up to, listened, or followed on some social media platform had mentioned mentor or mentors and how important they are. And what I tell people is, if you're looking to do something, don't try to recreate the wheel. You want to have your own creativity built into it, but there's always somebody that's done something similar. And again, not saying it's identical, but if you're looking, for example, to launch a podcast, there are a ton of people out there that do great shows. And John Lee Dumas, who's become a buddy of mine, I was on his show, and he was on our show. But the reality is, why try to recreate the wheel? So I've followed some of his guidelines. He's got a great program, and I've also referenced and made an introduction to other people. So I think you bring up a really, really good point, and I just wanted to touch on that as far as the importance of mentors, but also being open to both be a mentor as well as to be menteed by somebody else.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I love John. We produced his branding trailer for the Freedom Journal. I don't know if you saw that video out there with like the cool opening drone shot. That our team produced that. And then he was in our film and all these things, and we built a relationship. I was also a guest on his podcast. And it's cool because he offers all these like free tools and free courses and stuff. And then he had his podcasters, Paradise community that he brought in, he was very successful with. And, and he was saying, I think he posted just the other day that he was like, I can't believe I started this like 4 years ago, like knowing nothing, but it's all about consistency as well. And now he's a mentor to many, and people look up to him. And, he just, he always says, he's like, I was just, a normal guy, I'm just a normal guy. Like, you have to be authentic with whatever you're building if you want to be like John Lee Dumas, but make sure that you're authentic and you put your spin to it and your life and everything that's connected, because your audience is going to connect with you as a person and your personality and your stories. And so that's what is awesome is about being consistent too. And that's where I've been the most successful, is being consistent with, outreach, follow-ups, connecting with people, staying in one space. They say that if you're, on social media, if you're out of the loop for 90 days, people just kind of forget about you, and you want to keep following up. You want to see how people are doing, you want people to remember you.
No, that's a great point. And I'm actually working with a digital media and digital marketing team now. And that's something that they talk about all the time, is being consistent, but also being authentic. And I think people see through the fakeness, and I'm not saying people are fake, but the reality is when you're authentic and people actually know who you are, especially in the social media world, that's when people want to follow you. And that's why some of those videos where people actually go behind the scenes, the listeners and the viewers really take to those, because they want to know, what is this person like behind the scenes, and what are they like in front of the camera as well as behind the camera. So that's really important. And obviously you've had success and you've been authentic, so I commend you for that.
Thank you.
We utilize a daily quote in each one of our podcasts. I was curious if you have a favorite quote.
Oh boy. Gosh, there's so many. I had one that I actually posted to social media, I think this morning. It was about how, when, I'll find it real quick. So it was saying, like, on the sense of, okay, so there's 3 types of people, right? So there's the people who make things happen, the people who watch things happen, and the people who say, what happened? And I told my audience, I said, which one do you fall under? I'm a constant like action taker. And sorry, I don't know the person's name on the quote offhand, but it's something to think about too, because people are sitting here watching like the behind the scenes of people doing Facebook Lives or building their brand, and they're like, I want to do that, I want to do that, but at the same sense, they're not doing anything to start that or create that, and there's so many simple tools out there to help teach you things. Like even I have courses out there that teach people how to create, smartphone videos at a higher quality, but get creative with it and just go through everything like start to finish, very like pinpointed down, like modules that are like 5 minutes long, because I hate like going through like long, lengthy courses of fluff, right? So it's like to the point, and there's so much content out there that people can even just search on YouTube to just get going if they don't have an answer to something. It's so funny because my business partner Danielle should come up and ask me something. I'm like, just Google it, because I value my time, right? So, and just a simple answer, if somebody wants to get going with something, just do the research. But there's just so many different types of people in the world, and if you don't make things happen yourself, and you're one of those people who just sit there and watch things happen, or you all of a sudden you're like, what happened? Like you need to think about where you're at within that space. So I like that quote.
No, that's a great quote, and we'll try to find the exact quote and put it into the show notes. And it's something we talk about all the time at No Quit Living is there's a very significant difference between talking and doing, and talking the talk versus walking the walk. So the one thing you touched on is about taking action. You've mentioned that once or twice in the past
yeah.
few. No, and it's something I wanted to just briefly touch on because I think it is really important. And Jeff Woods, who was on episode number 35, he has the One Thing podcast, an incredible guy, works for the number one real estate company in the world.
Yes.
And he is so adamant when it comes to taking action. And one of his parting words on his show was, you can have the best content out there. You could have great content, but it's meaningless if you don't take action. And it made me think about something is that, I don't remember the quote, but even if you have good information, but you take a high level of action, it's better than having, the best content out there and doing no action or mediocre at best action. So it really comes down to just going and taking action. And you've obviously mentioned a couple times, when you find that thing you love or the company you love or the industry you love, that's great and that's a good part and that's a huge starting point. But the next step is taking action. So whether that's filling out an application or calling that person. So I'm glad you mentioned that because it is important. And speaking of action, as we all know, life is incredibly challenging each and every day. I was curious, what motivates you every day to keep on going?
Just being able to live the life that I want to do, like to have, basically like having my own lifestyle, live my own freedom, basically to set my own schedule, work with the people that I choose to work with, to, being able to work out of my home office if I want to, whatever it is, to travel when I want to. I just set a trip to Europe for over 4 weeks in October. I'm able to do that now. And because I set up my whole processes and my team that's in place so that my business can run while I'm traveling, and I don't have to be, unless it's an emergency, like people don't need to contact me. Like you set yourself up, people say you set yourself up for failure, but you know what? You have to hit failure before you can hit success. Like I've hit failure over and over and over, and I just fall on my face. And I've had plenty of people say, I would just be like on the ground crying right now. I'm like, who said I didn't? I haven't been there. I've cried many times. I've thought, oh my gosh, I'm down on my knees and I'm like, what's going on? Like, I always just trust that someone's looking over me and something will happen. It always happens that way. And I just keep pushing through to make sure that things happen. And that's really just what it is being able to have that lifestyle I want. I very much work in my business. I'm a part of the business, from the storytelling aspect to, I work on a lot of the sales calls. But it's more, for me, it's not even a sales call. It's a relationship building call, because at that point we drive in the right leads with the right people. So it's just a conversation about somebody sharing their story with me. And then I share my story with them from, a little bit more about my story. I literally was, got in trouble with the law, like over and over and over again, where I was in and out of jail. I was in jail for over 3 months, and I was on house arrest for 4 months. I was on, had an interlock device on my car for over 5 years. It actually just recently was taken off, even though I've been sober for 6.5 years. Just everything that happened in my life that was connected to me with alcohol, I just knew I couldn't do that lifestyle. I had to let go of people and things in my life that that assorted to like relationship of alcohol. Like I don't put myself in situations. I don't stay out past 10:30 at night. I'm not on the road after midnight because they say, I don't know all the statistics. They say over 80% of the people on the road after midnight have had a drink. It's not, I can't quote that, but there's different things that I've shifted in my life that are important to me that have gotten me to where I am because of that. Once I was released from jail and house arrest and I went to AA for a few years, I got a sponsor. Once I went through that and I kept on that track, like I just all of a sudden, like I knew I had an addictive personality. I still do. It's just a person how I am, but I became addicted to business and entrepreneurship. And I found that path. And then I realized that I could just push through. And so I'm just very motivated, like daily. Like I get up, I have my bulletproof coffee, I have my brain octane. I'm really like focus. And then, I just kind of go from there. And the one thing that people don't really think about is they ask me like, well, how'd you connect with Lori Grenier from Shark Tank? Like, how did you get in touch with her? She follows me on Twitter. She only follows 600 people and I'm one of them. And she, has 1.5 million followers on Twitter. I've had personal conversations with Lori Grenier, things like that. But those are the people that I've like been on my sites to connect with and have in like future films or potentially work with them or some of their businesses. You have to just think, like, I don't like to use the word think out of the box, but you just have to think differently, like be different than other people. There was a guy that spoke at an event I saw recently, and he said, you have to be different. And he shows a picture, and the picture is like a field of cows, and then there's a cow on the side that's a purple cow. Like you have to be that cow, right? Like, not saying people are cows, but you have to be different and stand out. Do what you want to do. If it's podcasting, if it's video production, if it's YouTuber, like whatever it is, be you. But you have to have something that stands out, but be consistent at the same time.
It's again, you've touched on that component of the consistencies, and I think if you stand out, it's a good thing, but you have to stand out consistently. And I think especially with social media, and you mentioned something that if you're gone for 90 days, you kind of have to, in essence, recreate everything. And obviously you're talking about the consistency. I wanted to just go back on one thing you said in regards to failure. It reminds me of a quote by Mickey Rooney, the famous actor, where he said, you always pass failure on your way to success. And I think what people don't realize is the most successful people in any field, in any industry, you can almost say that all of them have encountered more failures than successes, but more importantly, they've failed so many more times than other people have succeeded because they kept on going and they never quit. So I think your story, and I appreciate your candor and being very upfront. I did not know the full extent of some of the jail time and house arrest, and I think you speak about it now with, I don't want to say confidence, but it almost has a level of confidence in the sense of that could have crippled you. It could have obviously done more for you and potentially other people, but you took that circumstance, and it's now you're talking about persistency, right? You're talking about being sober for 6 years plus now, and I just want to commend you for taking action, because at the end of the day, we all have our vices, and we all have things that we use for a crutch, and for some people and for many people, they always have that crutch next to them, and they never let it go. And ultimately, I feel you can't always sit on the sideline and get greatness or succeed in whatever you want to do. And obviously your company is incredibly successful, and some of the people you've mentioned being friends and having as mentors, it's not because you just sit on the sideline and woe is me. It's because you take action. It's because you go ahead and said, I wanted to create this company. I wanted to be successful. I want to have these followers. So again, I truly appreciate you sharing your story and your honesty, because that's the best part about what we do at No Quit Living is we want to share people's story to motivate and inspire people to never give up. So hopefully there's a listener out there listening to your episode today that maybe is dealing with alcoholism or another vice, and hearing your story and where you came from to where you are now. And to be totally transparent with you, I don't think you've even scratched the surface of the levels of success you're going to have. So kudos for keeping on going. And again, I thank you for your honesty.
Oh, thank you. And right back at that same point though, and I do have this kind of dramatic story as well but that's when I started sharing my story from stages and things like that as well. So, not just I speak on the topics of video production at events as well, but that was really what people need to realize is, I had some people come up to me at Icon after I spoke, and they said, well, Tamara, I don't have that dramatic of a story, or I don't have a story. Like they just kept, like people would just say, I don't have a story that's impactful to share. And I was like, I had to talk and like ask questions because, I start asking, like, one guy's like, I don't have a story. And I was like, well, tell me a little bit about your life. He was like, well, I was a Navy brat. And he starts going into detail. I traveled with my father. I did this and this. Now he helps market to veterans. I said, well, there's your story. Like you do this for a reason because you have a background and you were passionate about this. You believe in the things that your father believed in and things like that. And he's like, wow. He's like, I didn't really think about that. And so everyone that I have a conversation with, it's all about asking the right question. Like they do what they do and they have a story to share. Everyone has it. It doesn't have to be dramatic though. It doesn't have to be this overall, oh my gosh, she, was an alcoholic. But I'm going to connect with different people on different levels, on different stories. And I have so many other stories, as well. But, people just need to understand though, everyone has a story to tell. It doesn't matter how dramatic, just stay positive as you build your life story, because you're going to continuously build stories throughout.
No, that's so true. And I think everybody does have at least one story, and many people have multiple stories. So here's a question a little bit outside of the box for you is, if you could have dinner with anyone, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Lori Greiner. That's just like, she's been like the one person that allowed me, when I first started watching Shark Tank, when it first came out, when she joined in, like there was something about her and listening to her story, the fact that she went out and busted her butt and she worked 5 years in her business before she even paid herself. And that was me basically the first couple of years of my business. I basically was not paying myself. And I thought to myself, well, geez, this is hard, right? But she just seems so genuine. And, some people, put up a facade on television, but like even the posts and connecting with her now through Twitter and some private messaging and some things like that, I've always wanted her to be a part of one of my experiences in films. And at some point I will make this happen. I actually just sent a follow-up email to her assistant yesterday, to Small World. But, it's just something like, I'm going to make something happen. I wanted to meet Marcus Simonis. I did. And then I spoke on stage with him. Like, he's a mentor of mine. Like, I don't know, you just have to be persistent and constantly don't get down on yourself. Like, if you're like, I can't do this, I won't do this, it won't happen. Like, just think about the words that you say, the emails that you write, and just be real and offer something them of value. That why would they want to connect with you? Because people go out and they're like, well, I'll go out and I'll do this for you, or I'll do this for free, or whatever, to connect. And that's some ways to get in the door with people, but ask them what they want and what they need, and get in there that way, so that, when like an assistant, like Lori's assistant writes me, he's like, okay, Tamara, so what's involved in this documentary? Who's being interviewed? Where is it going to be viewed at? What's the compensation? Be ready for those questions that these people are asking you, so that you can converse with them and be like, I'm one step closer to meeting them. Like that's really how I think. And so that's the one person I would want to have dinner with.
I'm a big fan of Shark Tank myself, and it's funny. I think my father.
Who's your favorite?
I don't have a favorite. I would say it's funny, but I've contacted and reached out to Mark Cuban quite a few times. I'm also a basketball junkie, so from that perspective, I'd love to have him on as a guest, because he's pretty over the top, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean, that's why he's been successful. So I would actually love to have him on the show, and I've actually reached out to him a couple times. I've not heard back. So Mark, if you're listening, or if somebody in Mark's team or circle is listening, please let Mark know that at any point we would love to have him on.
That's awesome. No, he's great. He's so intelligent.
So because timing is of the essence, I wanted to ask you if you're working on anything exciting that you'd like to share with our listeners.
Well, I'm always working on something. We're doing pre-production for our next documentary, but right now we're actually focusing on our smartphone course, which is releasing, teaching individuals, and it can be catered to allowing people to think how to create their videos more effectively, more high quality through their smartphone, plus the creativity aspect of it, which is launching called Serious Take Videos. So I go through like the whole production side of using a smartphone, because a lot of people think they have this tool in their hand and they don't use it effectively daily. We're on social media. Why not use it for creating video content for your business, or your brand, or behind the scenes, or whatever it is that you're creating, but being able to create videos that are more visually appealing than just like a talking head, just even the simple things of adding music or captions or things to get people's attention or creative B-roll. So we go over a lot of these things in this course. So we're working on that right now. We're launching that, and we're leading through a 5-day video experience, which we're planning to launch in August. So I'm really excited about that.
That's quite exciting, and I definitely we'll follow up on that. And it sounds really interesting in many ways. And here's the last question, and I promise it's the easiest one. What's the best way for our listeners to connect or follow you?
Depending on the platform, if you find me on Facebook, if you type in director Tamara Thompson, you can go follow my public figure page, or Serious Take Productions is our Facebook. You can go through our website too, serioustakeproductions.com, if you want to learn more about what we do and create, connect, and inspire through epic storytelling videos. Be sure to check out our website. Twitter and Instagram are at Serious Take Pro to actually follow me personally.
Awesome. Well, listen, Tamara, I cannot thank you enough, not only for sharing what you shared, but also just your candor, and the whole concept of being persistent and taking action is something that really hits home with us. So thank you so much for everything, and I truly appreciate not only your time, but also your insight.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate your time today.
To sum up today's episode and our theme of the day, persistence, that is exactly what Tamara has done throughout her life as well as her career. One area we discussed quite a bit in today's episode was the importance of mentors. Tamara spoke about a video that her company put together that featured many very successful entrepreneurs, and the common theme throughout the video was mentors. So a question I would pose to our listeners is, have you ever been a mentor, or have you ever been mentored? If not, it is something that we would highly recommend that you look into. Tamara also shared her battle with alcohol and how today she is well over 6 years sober and has made all the difference. Being in prison for over 3 months and under house arrest for 4 months didn't stop her. It was her persistence to get sober and to attack life head on. Near the end of the episode, Tamara discussed hitting failure on the way to success. I shared one of my favorite quotes by Mickey Rooney: "You always pass failure on your way to success." So my call to action for our listeners today is very simple. When you've hit failure, don't stop. It's okay to reassess where you are, to take a step back and re-examine your approach or your plan, but do not stop. Keep going for your success and your greatness. And lastly, to our listeners, thank you. We truly appreciate your time, and we hope our episodes inspire you to keep on attacking life and never giving up. To quote Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, it's always too early to quit.